pretend to understand, but it does seem to be a karmic good that our time and place seems to be in need of. We need more light workers doing this kind of stuff, and so if I would just say, since you're doing this work anyway, you may as well, do this and acknowledge that there are, lost souls about us who do need the light, and if we can help them, we should. And we can. It's in our power to do so. Very much so, especially because we're essentially doing this stuff anyway when we're doing our own work. But so that's the collective at the end. So that's getting rid of the guys who showed up who didn't really mean to come, right? They weren't drawn by the working, so to speak. They were just drawn by the astral light. So then we could move on to basically spirits, angels, elementals, whatever we would consider that might have also been drawn, that were specifically for our operation. And so, this isn't mine, this is very classic, but hear me and make all entities subject unto me, so that every spirit of the firmament and of the ether, upon the earth and under the earth, on dry land and in the water, of whirling air and of rushing fire, and every spell and scourge of God may be obedient unto me. Return ye now to your homes and habitations, harming none along your way, to manifest in accordance with our higher selves this great work we have set in motion. In the name of the Most High, the Tetragrammaton, whom we all serve, so mote it be. And then, again, a very even simpler way to say that would be, stay all if you will, go now if you must. For between us ever is perfect love and trust. Right? We're all in this together, one way or another, right? So, and then, because I didn't do it in this, but yeah, if you did anything other and optional rituals and the like, you might want to close down the way you opened. So if you did an invoking hexagram, you might want to banish your hexagrams at the end, that kind of stuff. But again, you want to close the way you opened, and in our case, that's with LBRP. So we'll do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram to basically sweep up after ourselves, energetically speaking, to banish all the unwanted attachments from any of the four elements that might still be sticking around, or otherwise. But that's the kind of idea of, we open that way, we close that way, and then if we use chimes to open, we would use chimes to close, blow out the candles that we lit, and so on. That kind of stuff. And then we're done. Then we set it and forget it. And we do not want to think about what we did for the next 3 hours, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, however long it's going to take our work to manifest. Obviously, the more that it's going to require, the longer it will take, but things tend to come in threes. And so then you want to keep your conscious mind distracted with other activities, and before you know it, it will manifest in your life. And that, my friends, is the formula of ritual. So there you go. Cool. Thanks. Okay. Oh, yeah. Do you guys want to do Q&A? Do you have questions, or do you guys want to take a break and get snacks and stuff? Okay, well, let me ask you this. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
The thank license to depart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, whereas example 1, the left word again.
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, fine.
I just had a question about where it says that you want whatever was attracted from the astral realm while you were doing your work, you want their will to be accomplished?
Well, right. Okay, so this is a whole other concept that has its roots in Thelema. Well, probably not specifically, but Thelema made a big deal out of it, so we'll use that, right? So the idea of doing the true will, that is essentially our spiritual mission, to find and to do our true will, to find out why it is that we have manifested on this planet, and to work on those teachings, lessons, whatever it is that we're supposed to know so that we can evolve in whatever way we're going, right? And the idea of the true will is that your will, or God's will is the will of the universe. You doing your true will is the same thing. When you do your true will, you are doing God's will, because that is His vision for your perfect self. Is a way to think about it. A way to think about it. Effectively, what we say when we are praying for these lost spirits, that they may see the accomplishment of their true will, whatever that is. We don't know. No one can ever know what your true will is better than you, right? Only you can know what is true for you. But the idea is that everyone has some kind of soul mission that they're on, one way or another, and to succeed at that soul mission could be interpreted as achieving your true will. One way to think about it, right? Or it could be any one of the litany of the things that we read off, right? Absorption in the infinite, united with their chosen and preferred, be in contemplation, be at peace, to reincarnate on another planet, or to become a higher vibrational thing of a higher consciousness density, perhaps. Where in theory, we're down here in the 3s and we want to get to the 4s or the 5s or whatever, which would be more angelic / godlike / titan-like / whatever, kind of idea, right? And certainly not the Western traditions aren't the only ones who think that. The Eastern traditions thought that stuff too. There's the whole wheel of karma, right? The 6 worlds and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, that's the long and the short of the true will. The idea is that is what the magician is attempting to accomplish. And how do you do that, right? As a lifelong pursuit. But the idea is I would say the easiest advice would be to follow your passions. Your passions show you your purpose. Your purpose tells you why you're here.
Okay.
Right.
Just because when I read that and it said that, it repeatedly says that whatever their will is, you want them to accomplish their will. But then that made me think, whatever is attracted to you while you're doing this kind of work, you don't know whether their desires or will are positive or negative. Mm-hmm. So when I read that, it just made me think I might not want their will to be accomplished because.
Okay, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Think about it another way. Then you're familiar. This crew I know is familiar with the concept of the higher self, right? The holy guardian angel or whatever. That essentially, if we take the idea of the oversoul, right? That maybe we'll use the tree of life, right? 10 divisions, right? 1 being God, 10 being microbacteria or something like that, right? And we're at 3, right? Where we're aware, we're not animals. We're beyond fight and flight. But we're not angels, right? We don't see fourth dimensionally, right? We don't see beyond time. We're stuck on the arrow of time, right? So we're in the cause and effect world down here. But if we're to imagine that while I am in the incarnation of Robert Randall, and you might be a completely different incarnation, we might have the same oversoul at some point. It might be all the way up the tree, but we might both be Ra. That'd be cool. You know what I mean? Or we might both be Thor or something like that, And then while there's all these permutations, deviations between, we might have that in common. Or something like it. Because ultimately, we all have it in common because we're all the one. Right? We're just stuck in this illusion of division. But we're all the one. We're all having the same thoughts, the same experience. We're just having them subjectively. Right? So, if we think about it that way, then while the quote-unquote materialistic ghost might have negative intentions, perhaps his higher self led him to that. So doing the true will, we would say, well, by default, he did the work of his higher self. Then if you did your true will, because it's in line, it's all in line, top to bottom, right? You see what I'm saying? No matter how the oversoul splits, if we're doing the true will, we're in the column of light that goes straight to the divine. Does that make sense? Right? That's the way I think about it anyway. Okay. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Awesome. Another one?
Yeah. If you can't reach somebody and you're worried about them,
mm-hmm.
you're not reformed could you like just ask them in your heart for permission? And that if, when you're asking...
Oh, you mean to do work on somebody else and they're not without their permission, you're saying?
Somebody's in a fire out in California,
Yeah, okay, yeah. Sure. I think general positive vibe stuff is not necessarily a bad thing. I don't think there's any harm in doing that per se. However, I would advise, while there's no harm in praying, it would help to know how to pray from a magician's perspective, right? Which would say that you want to spend your visualization on the positive outcome. So, for instance, if a friend of yours is sick, other side of the world or whatever, but they're sick, and you pray for them, do you spend your visualization imagining them sick, or do you spend your visualization imagining them well? Most people, when they pray, they're imagining their sick friend, right? Oh, my sick friend, oh, my sick friend. And yeah, I want you to get better, but they're spending the energy imagining them sick. That's not helping them. If anything, it's reinforcing that. So you want to, while you would want that person's permission, doing it without, can you do it? Absolutely. Might there be karmic blowback? Possibly. Are you willing to take that risk and do it anyway? Then that's on you. Right? Like, there's no wrong way to do anything. It's just there's going to be an input and an output to everything that we do. Everything we put out, it's going to come back in one way or another. And while praying for someone's physical health as opposed to their spiritual health is like arguably a different thing. If we're praying for them to like learn a truth or like see things from our perspective and like, if only the world knew what I knew, everything would be fine, that kind of thinking, is not actually correct, because it's like there is everything has to unfold in its own time, in its own way, right? When you can't force a butterfly to come out of the cocoon early, right? Doing so would only harm it, right? And so there are times that you are not ready to hear a truth. There were definitely times when I was not ready to hear a truth, and I put it out of my mind. I'm like, I'm not hearing that, and then what happens is 3 months later, 6 months later, it comes back with a vengeance, right? When you're ready, when you're ready to know it, you're ready to know it. And your higher self, like, puts this stuff in your path. That's what the point of that's the other thing. Like, while we make a big to-do out of a big magical operation, because for once it's in the reverse. Usually we are at the mercy of whatever it is that the subconscious has provided for us. Usually that communication doesn't go the other way. Not deliberately anyway. That's kind of the point of being a magician. But that's happening regardless, because your conscious mind is constantly engaged in the world around you, and your subconscious is just going to give you what you focus on. More of the same is usually what ends up happening. But okay, so I wouldn't recommend it, but if you feel led to do it, I would not tell you not to. I have certainly done things for other people in theory, but I always feel like I got permission to do so in one way or another. And I don't like messing with what could potentially be someone's true will in the first place. I don't want to change someone's mind, or have them do something else. Like a love spell, for instance. Not that I need one. I'm married for almost 10 years to my lovely wife, and I didn't need a love spell for that. But like for those who would, for instance, I don't know. I don't really like that idea, because you never really know. In theory, that person could be your soulmate and you could be meant to be together anyway, but in theory you wouldn't need a spell to do that, in theory. But who knows? Who knows? When something is supposed to happen, the universe will fall in line, and everything else will just get out of its way. So, anyway.
I had a person who, I think maybe she was doing magic. I knew her, and she would have like the tarot cards laid out and crystals on them. And I didn't know what she was doing at the time. I thought maybe she was visualizing. It was the 80s, and she was being very creative, which is very different. But then I did have like a a negative reaction to her, even though I think she's a very good person when she just talks and she gives good insights and is very helpful. But I feel very negatively towards her.
Towards her, or what she has to say?
Towards being associated with her.
Okay. Do you have any idea why?
She tends to make me, I tend to experience paranoia around her. You know, I mean, just, not that she's trying to hurt me, but just that there are just things in and around her that are negative, and I wouldn't want them to.
Well, I mean.
And I wondered if maybe she, as you were talking, maybe she had done some spell work there without permission, and
that could be one thing. She also could just not have her shields up, because she's doing all this tarot work and arranging diagrams, which might inadvertently have created some sort of magical. I don't know. I don't know what will end up showing on this camera, but when I mentioned him before, my friend Wimser, when he laid out the whole the entire deck on with all the deck-ins and everything on his floor, and there are whirls of orbs just spinning around the thing, and it's not dust, man. They're just whirling and whirling and whirling, and it's wow, there's something. Now, he uses Crowley's Thoth deck, while I like the Thoth deck, but I don't love it. And I get more of a resonance off the original Rider-Waite stuff. I don't know. I know it's incomplete, but I like it more, and so I'll use them. And for you guys, I figured you guys like the Rider-Waite stuff better than the Thoth. But anyway, if she's laying out arrangements and pulling off crystals and not keeping her shields up or doing essentially regular cleansing, even grounding work, right? You guys know about that, right? Just sitting on the earth for a couple minutes a day, especially if you're feeling ill, so that your energy drains out of the chakras and back into the earth and goes through the cycle again, all that kind of stuff, so that you're keeping you're an open conduit. The energy can flow through you and use you as a vessel in one form or another, right? Because that's essentially what chakras are anyway, aren't they? They're just vessels of the light. It's getting swirled up and paused here before it moves on, right? And the more it swirls and the less blocked it is, the more energy we should have, right? That just makes sense, right? In that sense anyway. So the answer is, you might not have been getting a weird vibe off your friend at all. You might have been getting a weird vibe off something else that was attached to something in that room, like those crystals or something like that. Might have had any number of things that we can bring all kinds of weird stuff into our house too. Stuff you just pick up from the antique shop might have some kind of weird attachment. You never know. You never know. And there are people. Now, I'm just not a fear-based person. And if you could terrorize yourself all day long worrying about what might be attached to whatever, for the most part, just walk in the light and you'll be fine. Too much fear is never going to benefit you. You'll never, at best, what is it I always say? No decision based on fear can prosper. At best, you can break even. And since you spent so much time hemming and hawing and worrying, you're actually behind, right? Because you could have been using that energy for something else. Right? Anyway, so cool. Any other questions? All right, awesome. All right, cool.